Hey, I'm back. This your boy, Coach Dr. E, your certified life coach and best-selling author. Listen, we trying to get this together. We just trying to get this live going for this interview with my amazing brother, Giovanni. But you know what? Technical difficulties, but never feel that you've been defeated, right? Definitely don't feel that you've been defeated. You know why? Because where there's a will, there's a way. Always have a backup plan. What's up, my brother Jay? Hey, listen,
It works.
I ain't gonna be defeated. I'm definitely not gonna be defeated. I got too much power, too much authority, too much prayer. Where there's a will, there's a way. I had to actually switch to my phone because I know I work around a lot of equipment here in the hospital. But StreamYard was like, I never normally have a problem with that. But you know, technical difficulties, like I say to people, that's why this is for us, that I, right before I brought you on, is that have a plan of action. Always have a plan A, B, or C. Well, God's plan is always going to work.
Absolutely.
But never feel that you've been defeated. But a lot of times this is what happens, and this is for everybody that might be tuning and listening. A lot of times people get frustrated. We get bent out of shape, or we be like, you know what? I'm not going to be defeated. I got to 2 o'clock to finish this, but you know what? I'm not going to be defeated. I got too much power, too much authority, you know what I mean? Too much prayer and too much seed in the ground. So I'm not going to be defeated. So I'm going to find a way to get whatever done I need to get done. So listen, we on here.
Absolutely. Amen. And look, so like a second ago, I just said, you know, how I was listening to you talk about a 1 a.m. Prayer call that you had the other day. And I said, you know, whatever was said during that call, I don't know. I think I need to try and evoke some of that right now to get this connected. So, yeah, you know, look, that was perfect, you know. So I definitely appreciate it. And, yeah, we're going to get you out by 2. So listen, one thing about what you do is you grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, correct?
Yes.
All right. So I know a little bit about that area. I was just thinking about this. So my parents had a trucking company, and they used to in the DC area, and they used to do some work up there. And just from what I know, for one, that's a pretty poverty-stricken area, I believe. I think now it's something like a third of the city that is. So you've had a major transition coming from that, you know, to be able to, you know, do speaking, to make it to Johns Hopkins and whatnot. Would you mind telling us how that, well, one, why you felt the need to get, you know, to leave Harrisburg and why you chose to do so?
One, it's actually really a good area up there. You know, with any city, with any state, you have the good, the bad, the middle. But it's definitely really a good place. You know, I grew up, lived there, went to school, went to college. So really lived in a very good area. And now with anything, any city, state, I don't care if you live in Beverly Hills, you're going to drive through a place that it looks not so good. And they sometimes only show that. But just praying about a move. Actually, it's been like 28 years ago. And actually it was Baltimore, moved to Maryland. You know, and then once working, before I got to Johns Hopkins, and before I got to the amazing church that I am at, I have the best church on this side of Jordan, y'all, Bethel Temple Church, y'all. And so then started work for, which was the Injured Workers Insurance Company. And then I started working like for Johns Hopkins large temp company. But then after that became when I applied for another position. Then so here it is 25 years later, still here at Johns Hopkins. And it's been an awesome transition, an awesome journey, you know, the good, the bad, all of that in between. And so you have to look at all of that. And like I said, it was all in the plan and will of God with me transitioning here to Maryland. It wasn't too far from home if I needed to get home. And I've always wanted that because normally when I first got out of
2 hours, I think. Maybe
actually, it's an hour and something, straight up 83 North. Straight up 83 North. And before I went to our Harrisburg Area Community College, which is now HAC, which is now a university, I was actually going to go to Morris Brown in Atlanta. But my mom got sick, so I was it's 8 of us, so I'm number 7. So it's just me and my mom.
Okay.
Of course, all my other brothers and sisters had moved out.
Right.
So I went to the community college here, in Harrisburg. And so then after that, after school, started working and stuff like that. And so, but like I said before, transitioning here, doing all that up there. But then, transition after praying and moving.
Right.
Here I am 28 years later, still in Maryland.
Yes, and what's funny, look, so when you were just talking about how, the good parts of Harrisburg, I immediately bit my lip. I said, because, that literally kind of goes against, a general narrative of mine. I interview a lot of people in, some of the country's biggest cities, the Baltimore, Detroit, Chicago, etc., with the express intent sort of to show more of the positives, people who are doing good things. So, didn't necessarily mean to lead with, the negatives of that area. I will say that I do know that, because I had to study some of it for work. I know that city for work in the past. I was a mayor's assistant. But Harrisburg actually ranks as one of the best small cities in the country. So, yeah, still not so bad.
Yeah. It's and wherever you are, it is what you make it. Wherever you are, it is how you look at things or look at things from another perspective. And, whether someone lived in Beverly Hills, if you didn't treat it as you lived there, or, however your mindset or where you come from or your upbringing or what you are accustomed to, and it's all a mindset, because you can live in, say, in the projects, but think you live in a mansion. You see what I'm saying? It's all a mindset and how you see it. It's your perspective of how you see things and what you do with what you have.
Yes, and so with that being said about the mindset, I was just reading about how the country is pretty, I was just reading all these stories about how the country, Americans, are increasingly unhappy. And I think that we might recently ranked as probably the unhappiest in the last 50 years. And then going down the reasons why that they say that, that this is, some of it being economic, whether it's, like blue collar jobs going away in the 90s, some people who say have never recovered. I felt depressed actually reading that. Most of it was structural things that are kind of, people can't necessarily do much about the circumstances around them. New York City apparently ranks as the unhappiest. Which some people have a hard time, trying to fathom, because so many people move there, right? There's so much exciting stuff going on in the area. So with that being said, this is the environment that we're in. The country's at sort of its unhappiest. As a life coach, how would you advise the client to be able to, navigate things, and particularly even during COVID, with so much of those types of negativities that are around, that's kind of easy to focus on?
One of the things is always assessing where you are, where you want to go, where you currently, or what are you currently doing. And a lot of times for me, first of all, you have to be a good listener. One, to listen, to hear the heart of people, to hear where they are, so you could be able to help them where they're going. Always even give them, even from reality and dealing with that, it goes back again to the mindset and the perspective and how you see it. You've got to see things, as I tell them, from another perspective. You've got to see things different. And no matter what may be going on, I always got to learn to see the positive, even in a negative situation. I've learned just like with a battery, you got the negative and you got the positive. Guess what? When you put those cables, you're just making sure you connect them to the right cable so you can jumpstart the battery. Sometimes you got to jumpstart. You got to look at things. It may look like it's a negative situation, or it may look like defeat, but then I still got to see victory even when I'm looking at defeat. My mindset, my faith, and definitely with faith and prayer, that plays a major part. Because I know with a lot of people that we have this pandemic and this epidemic that we're in, a lot of people could not handle it, and people handle things differently. People, deal with things differently, and I may not handle it the way Jay handled it or somebody else, but people are handling things differently. And so as I'm even dealing with clients or coaching people, you know, I listen first to hear where they are. I listen to see where their heart is, and I listen so I can help direct them to where they go. Because my motto is, and for the Power of Influence coaching service, is that, listen, I'm going to get you from A to Z and not leave you in the middle, and not leave you stuck in the middle. And so you will leave empowered. You will leave with more knowledge and understanding that I did not just get stuck in the middle of the process. But that's why it takes a good listening ear to hear where somebody is, and so you can able to navigate them where they need to go.
Yeah, well, you know, that's why we can have, what, 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? You know, we I think that's the other pandemic of people not being able to listen to each other, right?
It is vital and it is key, because a lot of times, sometimes all people need is a listening ear. Sometimes all people need is someone to talk to. That's why when we're dealing, and I just finished being certified as a mental health coach as well as a behavioral mental health coach. Thank you. And you know why? One of the things, hey, Kendra, one of the things is because sometimes all people need, they don't need you to talk. They know they got problems. We know we have problems. You don't have to keep reminding me, or if it's an addiction or whatever it is, they already know that. And you've got to be able to just listen, because all they need to may say is, you know what, Jay, you know what, you can make it, you know, or just listen and just let them get it out. Let them talk it out. That's why when we look at suicide, or we look at depression, and we see so many people dealing and cannot cope or cannot handle, all they needed somebody was to do is to be able to talk. Somebody to listen while they get it out. Somebody to just, at the end of it, if they want to ask the questions, you got to know how to shift things. You got to know how to listen, and you got to know how to navigate and then ask the right questions. When I was going through Lighthouse University, being certified as a mental health coach and a mental behavior health coach, man, looking at the modules and looking at the statistics and looking at all this information, you got to be able to see it. You got to be able to apply it. You got to be able to navigate, and then to help them. Because the truth of the matter, sometimes all I just need somebody to listen to, or somebody to be able to talk that I can confide in, share with them, and knowing it's sacred right there. Yes. Unless it becomes detrimental to the individual with harm. You know, even as we do here in the hospital, when people come in to our ER, when I worked in there and dealing with traumas and all of that, if they come in saying I'm suicide, now that's a whole nother level where now you take another approach. Right.
Yeah, I have a slight mental health background. I worked in an agency now, I think it was exactly 10 years ago now. And so, you know, with me working in politics and doing community-related things, I'm always pointing out, you know, the mental health angle, you know, to make sure that that's covered. I'm in one of those cities. It's very bizarre. I always say that I know that that these issues exist here. No one ever talks about it. You know, so I try and, you know, cover some of the, you know, lesser spoken about socioeconomic issues. For some reason, it's just like, you know, sweeping it all under the rug here. But regarding you choosing to become a mental health coach, becoming certified in that, I know that tends to be, it's almost like the therapy versus life coach argument. You know, they're kind of polar opposites. You know, one is to help you with, you know, becoming successful, getting from A to Z, and the other, you know, essentially addressing more of your past. And people conflate the two a lot. But with this, you're able to, you know, address both angles of it. What made you decide to get into mental health?
One, because it's so much going on, and especially in our culture, not just our culture, but definitely in our culture, because we don't want to talk about stuff. Yeah. We don't want to deal or address it, or, you know, we still have that motto is that what stays in the house goes on in the house and all that. No, get some help. Like I tell them, like I just did a men's session, I said, get the help you need. Do not have that stigma that you have to deal with, whether it's depression, suicide, whatever it is that you did, that you have to do it alone, when we have a lot more help and a lot more things now than we did. So I said to them, talk about it. deal with it. You can't just sweep stuff under the rug. And then that's why people die naturally and spiritually, because they don't deal with it. They don't talk about it. And so you got to also know there is a difference, but yet even though you can intertwine them, you just got to know the difference between the two, because one is dealing with the mental, one is dealing with the depression, one is dealing with this, you're dealing with how to help people in careers and how to help people in their development. So you got to know the difference as well. Then you can intertwine them, but you definitely got to know the difference, and then what situation applies to what. Right. Now, if I know somebody's depressed, now I ain't going to be talking about just career development. If I know you got a problem and you need help in this area.
And that's the good thing. You don't have to, so you're able to handle it yourself versus, redirecting them somewhere else. Although, that might be, a different fee schedule, but at least the capability.
But you got to know how to refer people to the right help too. If I know I'm not a marriage counselor or a marriage coach, I got to direct them to, I know somebody who is, because now you start operating in a lane that you don't know. Right. So operate, and that's what God said to me, operate the lane you've been given. And so work the lane that you've been given. So I know when I was over directors of new members ministry at my church, if somebody came in and needed a social, somebody in that area of dealing with, say addictions, I know somebody right here, I would direct them right to them. If they were dealing with prison ministry, we got let me direct you here. Right. I had someone I could direct them to, so I'm operating in what I've been given. I'm operating in the lane that I've been given. Hey, Big, what's going on, man? My little brother praying for your family all the way from Kolkata, India. He is the CEO of Upwards Magazine. Thank you, man, all the way from India. And so you got to be able to help people in the area. Oh, Lord, what am I doing? In the area of where they need. And so you've got to be able to operate in that lane. Hey, Bishop Danny, what's up? And operate in that lane that you've been given. I'm telling you, because so many people are operating in the wrong lanes.
Right. I was in my new converts ministry in high school. I mean, that was a few years ago, but that's very important. When they're coming in, to be able to direct them to the right place. I guess when you're in it, you don't think about it, but looking back at this in retrospect, X years later, I realized that's very important. Folks are coming in, they're vulnerable at that moment. Sometimes unleashing things on you. And instead, some people just go through the motions, right? We have our, list of, how the day is to go and, where we send them next. But no, you are absolutely right regarding, being able to refer people to the correct place. And look, as far as the mental health stigma, I think that it's important, for people such as yourself to be a part of this, because I think that part of that stigma comes from, there was a time whereby, if we decided to say, hey, I think that I need to, seek mental health services or take my child somewhere, well, then you would no longer have a child after that, or, if you decide to, seek some services for yourself, you might not come back outside, particularly, in the Black community. So a lot of people tend to pigeonhole us by saying that, we're just afraid of, seeking help or whatever and trying to, make some type of eugenics argument. But no, there's a serious history, with that. Some of these stories I still hear, passed on today, where I share with folks that it's, that it's okay, to be able to tell people and to go to folks, today. It's not quite the same as it was in the past. Pretty tough, but, just the same. And since I have to go in a moment, you'd recently written a book in the middle of the pandemic about, called My Next Season is Due Season. Would you mind telling us about that?
Yeah, actually, it's amazing because God is so strategic. When he gave me My Next Season is Due Season, he gave it to me when he gave me the power of the seed, not knowing that 5 years later is when it was birthed. So he may give you something, not knowing. And literally, it was only just a few months ago that he really revealed
for COVID.
Yeah. And so because now in the time, that's why I tell you, you got to operate in the timing and season of God, is because when it was released, is that people need to understand about dealing with the process, the preparation of getting from one season to the next. And we're trying to skip seasons. We're trying to skip the process. We're trying to skip the preparation. And so when we're skipping that, then we're not fully developed. We're not fully mature. Or when we're trying to wait on getting to one season, what we know, we got spring, summer, winter, and fall, or even for the believers, we say we got a fifth season, which is due season, right? And so here's the thing, from the natural and even to the spiritual aspect of it, you've got to go now. We know the weather just changed today here. The other day it was cold. I had on a full length mink. Today I don't have to have on that because it's not as cold, but it does not steal the fact that it's still winter, knowing that spring is what, in March. But here it is, even when one season is trying to hold on. And yet I'm in one season, but it still doesn't, the fact that the season ain't changed yet. I still got to endure this season to get to the next season. And so it's going to help people to understand dealing with the timing and season, dealing with process and preparation, dealing with that you got to endure, and you cannot just skip the process, the preparation. But if you endure this season, you can get to the next season.
Amen. You're absolutely right. So look, well, this looks like this would be your time. I don't want to hold you, but I do definitely appreciate it. We have to catch up again soon.
Yeah, we definitely going to do this again. Technical difficulties, but I always say I ain't going to get defeated, because you know what? I got too much power, too much authority, too much Holy Ghost. And listen, that's why you always, even in all of this, is that you always, I look at things from another perspective, because people that may be joining wouldn't have joined prior to. And so I'm always looking at a positive situation. I remember the late Apostle Evans would always tell us, don't despise the process. And he would say that because a lot of times we despise the process, but knowing that it's the process that's making us, it's the process that's helping us and getting us to where we need to go. So I tell people all the time, you've got to see trouble as a transportation of where you're going.
You're right.
You know, but never feel that you're defeated, because you have a plan of action. As they say, a backup plan, a plan A, B, C. We know when technology and difficulties or things may seem, you know, that it's not working, but go back to the basics. Go back to the basics.
Very good analogy.
When you had to write with pen and paper, you know what I mean? Like, I go back to the basics, you know, and a lot of times we need to get back to the basics. I know we done advanced and all of that, but the old way never gets old.
Absolutely. Sidebar, look, it reminds me, you know, I learned in high school how to do all of the Windows keyboard shortcuts. Looking back at it, it seemed like it made no sense. Who does that? You know, I literally wrote them down and memorized them all. And today, if I ever have any computer problems, those same shortcuts still work almost 20 years later. So, you know, the basics are important. I do web design, and similar with that. Or I did do it. I taught myself how to write hard code as a teenager. Nobody does that anymore. But when we have our issues, you know, the technical issues, because I used to maintain my own site, thank God I don't do it anymore. The maintenance part, I was always able to fix things. I was always the one who was able to be called to fix it, because I actually knew code. So you're absolutely right. And for those who are listening, this is going to be edited, and it will be on the Misty TV channel on Roku. And that should be, it's Wednesday. This should be probably next Wednesday. Okay. This is a pleasure. And look, you know, you're my first life coach I need to speak to, or that I've spoken to earlier. Why I say need, because while I was having issues connecting, I said, well, gee, I guess I probably really need to speak to a life coach now. You can't even start, you know, what you do on a regular basis. So this is a pleasure.
Well, I definitely appreciate you taking time out. Looking forward, you know, to the journey and, you know, our divine connection and you know, how we've been divinely connected. So I look forward to all the great things that is going to happen. You know, definitely to Missy, I'm super proud of her. And so, you know, I'm just grateful for what is about to transpire, because in this season, as I tell people, it's all about divine connections. It's a whole new
Yeah.
season, a whole new chapter, you know, and the best is yet to come, man. So I appreciate you taking time out, and yeah, let's get it done and keep moving forward.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. All right.